Hiya, folks. It's been a while since I posted. Sorry about that. Lots of crazy things going on in the world. You just can't keep up with it all. Today's video, I guess, is about talking about Alberta. I don't understand what's going on with those rednecks out there. I mean, talking about separation, this is the worst time in Canadian history that you could be talking about wanting to secede from the rest of the nation. I mean, just feeding fuel to our enemies. I mean, come on, guys. And, the other thing about when people talk about is, you want to separate from Canada, everybody wants to keep the perks of being a Canadian citizen, but they want to give us all the finger and say, you know what, we don't like Canada, we hate Canada, but we want to keep all the perks. We're going to use your currency, we're going to keep our healthcare system, our pension plans, our EI, we're going to use anything that's Canadian. We'll just, use your airspace. That's not how it works. If you want to separate from Canada and you don't like being a Canadian, you don't get to thumb your nose at us, tell us you're going to separate, and then everything that you hate, you want to keep. That makes no sense. You want all the perks of being a Canadian, but you want to have your own country and your own government. You got to remember, Alberta, you're a landlocked province. You have no ports. The only way to get anything in or out of your country, if it comes to that, would be through Canadian airspace and Canadian highways. So if you separate, you are going to have to come up with trade agreements with Canada and the provincial governments on airspace, routes for travel. You're going to have to put border checkpoints up. And because you're your own country, you're going to have to come up with your own gold reserve. You're going to have to come up with that. You're going to have to come up with your own currency. You're going to have to come up with your own form of government, your own form of laws, your own military. All of these things you have to think about. You're going to have to come up with trade agreements with Canada and other countries because you're no longer Canadian. You're now the country of Alberta. So you have to think about this before you go. You can't just be self-governing and keep everything Canadian and then govern yourself and not give anything to the rest of the country. It's the Canadian taxpayers who pay into those programs. So why would we pay for you to have healthcare and currency and pension plans and your EI and anything else when you're giving nothing back to us? When you hate Canada so much, why do you get to enjoy those perks? That's not how it works. If you want to separate, you do it 100%. And what's the other thing that's going to happen once you leave? What do you think is going to happen to places like CFB Cold Lake or CFB Edmonton when the military pulls out and there'll be thousands of civilian jobs lost because of the army bases closing down and the Air Force bases closing down? Then what are you going to do? What's your economy going to be based on? You have to truck in almost everything or fly in almost everything. Yeah, you have the oil, but that's it. What else are you going to offer? These are things you have to think about. And then, again, if you separate from Canada, all of that land, all of the treaties that the Canadian government made up with the Indigenous bands, the land reverts back to them. So you're going to have to come up with new treaties with the Indigenous folks and figure out what you're going to do. You're also going to have to figure out border security, border patrols, checkpoints. You're an independent country. You're not part of Canada. You can't just have free travel back and forth. You have to come up with passports, the whole bit. You guys have really got to think these things through before you talk about separation. It's the same thing when Quebec pulled the crap. It's the same thing with them. 100. You want to leave? It's a 100% separation. You don't get to keep the perks of being a Canadian citizen and of being Canadian and not be paying into the system. If you don't like it here that much and you want to pull out and you want to leave, then go. But it's 100% going. And then there's no reversing and saying, well, they made a mistake, we want to come back. It's ridiculous. And a lot of the things that you're talking about can just be talked out. Using separation isn't the first thing you do when you're trying to negotiate. If I get in an argument with my wife, or me and my wife disagree with something, I don't go and get divorce papers signed every time we disagree on what color the house should be or what day groceries should be picked up. No, it's a discussion. You sit there and you figure things out because it's a partnership. I'm at my job. I don't like what they're doing. I don't quit my job because I'm angry at what's taking place there. No, you talk it out. You use common sense. What you guys are doing is you're talking about how, the Canadian government does this and Canada does this and the Canadian people don't like Alberta, and that's it, we're going to take our ball and go home. Very childish way of thinking. Very, very ignorant way of thinking. So, think it through, Alberta, before you talk about wanting to have a referendum. Because if you want to go, it should be 100%. You shouldn't have any of our perks. And you know what? There goes some guy who's been working for 35 years for the federal government. You tell him, well, I'm sorry, you don't have a pension plan. Or, hey, you know what? You don't have your health care coverage anymore. Or, hey, you know what? You get laid off from your job. You don't get EI. None of that will be covered because you're no longer a Canadian. I don't think you guys understand that. So, if you leave, you want to go, 100% going. Get your own military, get your own currency, come up with your own government, come up with your own constitution or Bill of Rights or Charter of Rights and Freedoms, whatever you want to call it, do that. And then if you think you're going to join the United States as one of their states, hey, feel free to do that as well. You're going to have no voting rights with them. They're going to come up, they're going to strip the hell out of your province and take everything they need, and it's all going to head down south, and you're going to get nothing. So, look what happens when people join the U.S. Look at Puerto Rico. Look at the U.S. Virgin Islands. Look at how they're treated. They have no right to vote, no anything. Look at even how Hawaii became a state. It was bullied into it. If that's what you want, and that's what you think, then go for it. But, Canada isn't perfect. Democracy isn't perfect. But being a part of this great nation is still better than the alternative. Maple Leaf forever.